Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time you are watching this. Welcome back to the 25th episode of the Since I Was Young podcast. A podcast that is usually all about Heart of Midlothian, but this is going to be a slightly different the podcast to what we usually would do. We are going to talk about not just Hearts, but the whole of Scottish football. And it is going to be concerning the implementation of VAR. It's been a discussion that has been widely talked about throughout the last few weeks, especially since Friday, where the representatives of VAR met up with the SFA and the SPFL, which the presentation was given by ex-English referee Howard Webb. He discussed all the sort of, the big, beautiful thing that is VAR and, his sort of, the vision for what it would look like for Scottish the football in general. So, as I said before, there won't be any news segment as such, and unfortunately there won't be any Hearts news, unfortunately, as well. But I guess no news is good news, I guess, in that respect as well. So yeah, both your hosts, myself, Ewan and Alan, will be going through the sort of ins and outs of what we can expect from the VAR. It's sort of going through the positives and the negatives, as well as the costs as well, which is the main factor, I guess, in terms of the Scottish game. And yeah, we'll just have a general chat about it. But as always, before we do get started, as always, guys, if you are a Hearts fan and if you are a fan of the Since I Was Young the podcast, if you haven't subscribed already, please do, because it always helps us out as well. And if you want to hit that like button, as well, as always, if you do enjoy this episode of the podcast, please do, because as I said before, it is always appreciated as such. And if you want to get in contact with us via our Twitter page, Instagram and Facebook, you can as well. We would love to hear your opinions on this matter as well, because it is quite an intriguing subject to talk about as well. And if you also want to get in contact with us via our email as well, you can. It is at sinceIwasyoung1874@gmail.com. And if you want to get in contact with us as well through our Twitter pages, you can as well. All the links will be in the description, and you can throw us your views on the implementation of VAR being introduced to Scotland. So, Alan, first things first, how are you, sir? You good?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. I'm good. I'm just having a nice quiet Sunday today. It's been nice and chilled. So, yeah, can't complain. How about yourself?
Oh, not too bad, mate. Not too bad. But I say you're still riding that Scotland train from last night as well, are you?
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely. I am very much a fair weather Scotland fan. I'm not a diehard, and I don't pretend to be. But last night was pretty special. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I mean, I said to you, sort of beforehand, this is probably about the 50th time we played Israel, throughout this last sort of 2 years. But I did manage to get a view, sort of the highlights as well. And to be fair, the thing that I found most inspiring was Ali McCoy's was it a commentary. Like, that man knows how to commentate a football match, does he?
What a man! What a
He really
man!
does.
Oh, he's unbelievable. He was like a schoolboy at the end.
He was.
Love it.
He was. Get in! Absolutely brilliant. But yeah, it was. On that note, was it very well done to Scotland, and all the best, especially to Craigie Boy on Tuesday night. All the best for that game, lads. So yeah, I guess there's no point in the wasting time, mate. I guess we can just get down to the hard graft, and we'll have a wee chat about the implementation of VAR being introduced to Scotland by 2022, I believe it is.
Yeah.
So Alan, if you don't mind, I would like to kick things off with a very simple question, and then we'll fire away from there. VAR. Yay or nay, son? Yay or nay? Are you all for it? Are you against it? Are you sitting firmly on that fence, sir?
I'm sitting on the fence, leaning slightly towards the yes side. That's my take on it at the moment.
Always a complicated answer, isn't it, sir? Always a complicated answer from yourself, isn't it?
I think there's lots of variables, shall we say? But no, I'm more in favour of it than I am against it, to be honest.
Would you like to explain why, and then we'll crack on from there?
Yeah, I think it's one of those that we've seen it in the English game. It's been in England. It's been implemented in England since 2018-19. I think it was the season that they implemented it down there. And obviously, it's a very controversial subject when you talk about VAR, because you get your football purists that say human error is a part of football and should remain a part of football. And I appreciate that. I do. I fully appreciate that. But I think when you're talking about VAR, it's not to replace the referee. It's not to make the referee invalid in the game situation. It's a tool to help the referee. And that for me is something that certainly referees up here could do with, you know.
Yeah.
But it is a difficult one.
Yeah, I mean, from where I stand on it, you see you're kind of leaning slightly towards in favor of it. My arse is sitting firmly on that fence. I'm not swaying backwards. I'm not swaying forwards. My arse is firmly tied to that fence because, like you said there, like you know, there's obviously a lot of the positives to what VAR can bring to Scottish football. Of course, like sort of one of the positives being that, you know, we've kind of been like, you know, like it's been said by many people, and like, you know, we are kind of, I wouldn't say stuck in the sort of stone age as such, but I do think in terms of the leagues all around the world that we are a bit behind the times in terms of where the Scottish League or where I think the league should be, because as much as Scottish football gets a bad rap, you know, I do think it can be a very entertaining league. And I think, like, you know, in terms of actual proper home sort of grown roots football players, I think that stems a lot from Scotland. But, like, you know, I don't think you tend to see it as much down in England, like, you know, like sort of with these clubs spending millions and millions and millions of pounds on these world class players. You know, the youth, like, you know, as such, are not getting a chance to actually come through. And I think that's something that Scottish football, I do genuinely think, does better than England, despite the fact that they've got these multi-million pound like sort of academies, but I don't think they get used to their full potential. And I think that's something that Scotland do very well on a very lower scale. And I think what my brain kind of tells me is that I almost think it would maybe do more damage than it would do good. Now, we talked about, like, you know, like we talk about, like, you know, some of the positives and the negatives. Now, I've actually done some the research for once, Alan. So I'm gonna throw you a stat. Thank you. I'm gonna throw you a stat your way, and I'm gonna ask for your like opinion on it, right? So let me just get the year. So it was back in 2019-20 season in the English, was it at the Premier League, right? So VAR is costing Premier League fans, right? Fans, like, is the main thing, right? All are across the country more than £2.7 million over one season. Now, what they mean by that is, for some decisions like sort of through VAR, whether that be if the ref like sort of needs to check for the bad challenge as such, anything at all, right? On average, right, that takes an average of the minutes to actually do, right? So over the course of a football game, right? On average, the playing time that fans got to actually see, right? I was staggered, like sort of to buy this, right? So the longest game that fans got to actually see, right? It was a Man City game. I don't actually have which specific game it actually was, but the longest game in terms of what fans got to actually see was for 60 minutes. And that half an hour was all spent on VAR in terms of checking, in terms of like stopping was it the play, like etc. Now going on to why that actually was it costs fans like sort of 2.7 was it the £1 million throughout that league is the average price of a season ticket down there is £750, which I find ridiculous anyway, but and obviously, like if you're Chelsea, if you're Tottenham, if you're Man City, they're going to be into the thousands. Where Tottenham actually charge £3,000 a season, which is criminal, absolutely criminal, right?
£3,000 a season to watch Tottenham.
You look that up.
Okay, that's their new fancy stadium, surely. That's mad.
Absolutely, right? So, right, if you take into account, right, if that comes into Scottish football, right, where let's just say, for argument's sake, let's just say it's 20 minutes, like sort of was it the per game, right? If you add that up over 5 was it games, right? That's a whole was a game that fans are actually losing out on, right? On average for Hearts, I believe it's about £300 for the season ticket. I think like right. So if you take that into account, fans are going to be losing was it the money as well as like the time that they don't get to actually watch the game as well, because like something that I didn't actually know and something that I didn't actually was it grasp it until I actually looked that up. I genuinely thought that if games are stopped for VAR, I genuinely thought that that time would actually get put into the extra time, but it doesn't. Like I was staggered by that. So that was just one of the things.
Yeah.
like you know what I mean. So what's your take on that, mate?
Yeah, it certainly adds to the no or the negatives towards VAR, because obviously, I mean, with that, you've got to think as well, like when it was first introduced in England, it was brand new technology. And I think the referees down there, I'm not saying there was a resistance to it or there was a reluctance to use it, but I think to begin with, they didn't really want to turn to VAR because they thought, well, I've not needed it before, so
yeah,
why do I need it now? So then I think there's maybe an element of that, but then equally there's also maybe an element of they want to overuse it. And I think that is something that certainly for me in recent games in England, I haven't noticed. So I had a statistic as well from it was the 2019-20 season that it was introduced, not 18-19, so I was a year off, but anyway, it was introduced in 2019 for the 2019-20 season in England, and over that season there was 2,400 incidents were checked by VAR.
Jesus.
Right? And of those, 109 were overturned. So in terms of like goals or red cards or offsides, etc. So that is an average of one overturned decision every 3.5 games.
Right, I get you.
So, when you put it like that, it's not too bad. Then you see the percentage of correct decisions before VAR. So you're talking referees, linesmen, that's it, was 82% in that season prior to VAR, which was 2018-19.
Right.
And this is English Premier League, by the way.
Yeah.
Then with VAR introduced in the 2019-20 season, it increased to 94% successful decisions or accurate decisions, right? So to go from 82% of correct decisions the season prior to 94, purely based off of VAR's influence, that's impressive. And
Fair enough. Fair enough.
I think the whole thing and the whole issue with VAR for me is that you're not looking for 100% accuracy, because that then makes the game ridiculously clinical, would remove all sort of passion from it, because you would just be, robots and linesmen that are not even in the stadium drawing me lines on screens and stuff. That would ruin the game of football from a fan perspective, because you just think, well, the technology is going to get the right decision all the time. So even with VAR, there is still an element of like human error, because obviously it's how you interpret it as a referee. So I think it is a tough one. It is a tough one. And I totally understand why it's a controversial subject and why some people love it, some people hate it. And some people are in favour of it and some people aren't. But I think, like, just going back to what you said at the start about Scottish football being in the dark ages, I think there is a strong element of truth to that as well. I think even, talking about like the league structure and the league split and all this, like obviously that's a whole different debate for a whole different time. But I think personally the splitting of the leagues, for the last seven games, six games. And I think that's nonsense. I've thought that's nonsense for a long time. I don't understand that. But, there's many, many things that could improve Scottish football. And I'm not saying that VAR is one of them, but I think having it it's inevitable. Like, they had their meeting on Friday. There's going to be a club's vote, because apparently the meeting on Friday went very well. And the member clubs that were there were kind of impressed, and there was a broad level of support for VAR. So it sounds as if there's a vote pending on it actually being introduced. But it's important not to think that VAR's coming in so every decision is going to be right, and there's going to be no talking points in Scottish football, because that's not the case.
No, I mean, you're saying there that there's going to be the vote for the top flight clubs, Alan. I don't know why I think this, but I think Robbie will be all for it. Because we've moaned about in the past, where what Benny's done was the post match interviews, and he's moaned about any wee thing. I think he'll actually be in favour of it. I don't know why I think that, but I think he will be.
I think so. And I think it's also one of these things, because there's obviously a lot of talk in Scottish football about Old Firm bias. Now, whether you agree with that or you don't agree with that, I'm not going to start a debate on that. But there are some referees that favour certain sides of Glasgow. Because, it's natural. Like, if you support them, you shouldn't be refereeing a game that involves them. But I think as well, it's the VAR whole thing. It levels that playing field, and it says, well, it doesn't matter if you're Celtic, Rangers, or Dundee or St Mirren. You get the same treatment from VAR. And if, of course, it is. It's really, really difficult. It really is.
I mean,
but
sorry, go on, Alan. Go on.
No, I was just going to say that I think it's something that can benefit the referees in this country. I think that probably is a good direction to go down. I think the referees in Scotland are obviously part-time, and it would need to be implemented properly. Like, there was talk a few years ago when English football was getting it, that Scottish football was looking at like a budget version, like VAR Lite, I think it was, because obviously cost was a massive factor back then. And I'm not in favour of that. If VAR is coming to Scottish football, I want it to be the full package of what it is. I don't want VAR Lite. Like, I've seen games where they have VAR, but there's no screens in stadiums, so fans have no idea what's going on. And that is a worry for me. But then that would increase the cost for clubs, because they'd have to find ways of getting screens in their stadiums.
I mean, we will talk about the costs in general, but I just want to go back to a point that you made at the start. So you used the term overuse, right? Like, from was it the referees. Now, do you not think deep down, like, because our refs are the part-time, do you not think that the referees themselves in Scotland would, like, let's say for the first sort of season, would you not think that there would be that sort of added was it the pressure to the referees as such that they would in turn overuse the actual system itself to stop every single tiny little challenge. Because we said, when we reviewed the Hibs game, that was stopped enough every single sort of 5 the minutes, and that was it without VAR. So do you think, I don't want to keep sort of trying to use this particular term, but do you not think that in itself would take away the drama and the sort of and put a bit of a dampener on sort of the games as well?
I think it would. I think the thing about Scottish football is that, I'd love to know like a statistic on it. I don't have it, but I'd love to know it. And if somebody knows it, they can let me know. But in terms of, like you said earlier about games in England, like fans missing X amount of minutes out of games, I would love to know what the average length of a Scottish Premier League football match is in terms of how long the ball is actually in play.
Yeah.
Because there is a lot of time when the ball's getting lumped out of the park, or long balls getting hoofed away. And, it's not the most technical quality league out there. So there is a lot of time when the ball is not in play. So again, I mean, I'll go back to the overusing scenario. In English football, at the start, it was like, right, this is new technology. We're going to use it for everything. We're going to use it for offsides. We're going to use it for goals. We're going to use it for fouls. We're going to use it for everything. And they've obviously had it for a couple of years now. And each time at the end of each season, they've looked back and they've went, right, do we really need it for that? Do we really need it for that? Can we be a bit more lenient with that? The most recent one, I think, was the offside decisions. They've said that, because how they draw the lines on the screens?
Yeah.
They've said they're going to draw thicker lines now, apparently.
Yeah, because the offside rule down in England has been tweaked. It's been redone so many times now. I don't, from your perspective, I don't know what you define was it the being offside, right? But from my perspective, right, I genuinely think it should be taken into consideration from your chest downwards, right? I don't think your hand, right, constitutes you actually was it the being offside, because it's knowledge, right? You use your hands to run, right? Now,
yeah, exactly.
Now your legs, right? I would then consider that offside, right? But when it gets down to the literally a ball fucking hair, right?
Yeah.
Literally, I'm meaning I don't I was it going to say was it cock for sort of being absolutely tiny, but that's not the case. Something like tiny, right? I find that ridiculous, because that does, like you said at the start, that's just being robotic as fuck. I'm sorry, and that again just takes away the whole the passion of the actual game itself.
Yeah, it does, and I think they've refined that, and they've said, okay, they're going to draw thicker lines, which obviously benefits the forwards more than the defenders, which is how it should be.
Yeah.
They've changed the handball rules as well multiple times, based off of VAR. And I think it's one of those things that if and when VAR comes into Scottish football, there probably will be, to begin with, lots of teething problems, and there'll be,
of course there will.
There'll be moments where referees are thinking, well, I'm confident in my decision, so I'm not going to use VAR. And then it'll be a case of maybe later in the day, it'll be, well, if you used VAR, you would have got the right decision. But it's all about judgment. And I think that's got to be the biggest thing as well. I think it's like I said at the start, it's a tool to assist referees. It's not to replace them. And we have to remember as well, the people that are going to be using the VAR, that are going to be sitting in the wee vans drawing the lines, they're Scottish officials as well. So
imagine those lights, they'll be squiggly as fuck. They won't fucking be.
But this is the thing. It needs to be like the referees, if they're going to need to use it, they need to be properly educated, and they need to be trained up properly on how and when to use it. It's still got to be a judgment call. It shouldn't be, oh, we've got this big fancy new technology, I have to use it for everything. But I feel like, to begin with, that's what we might see.
Possibly.
Because that's how it was in England.
But you just know with Scottish refs, like, for example, right? Willie fucking Collum. That boy's face makes my skin crawl. Like, seriously. And just watching him going to a wee screen, even that infuriates me. I don't know what it is. Like, you're just like, you know what I mean?
It's about experience, and it's about,
Yeah.
you know, like you say, the judgment of the referees. And, you know, like you say, again, our referees in this country are not fantastic at the best of times. So
not fantastic, mate. That's a compliment.
Then again, this is why a tool like VAR would be useful. But
Right.
again, it's got to be used properly, and they need to learn from the English game about how it's used there, because I think it's inevitable that we're going to get it at some point.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But yeah, you have to. I think as fans as well, we have to have a bit of patience, which we're not good at.
No.
In terms of getting through the teething problems and getting through the referees overusing it constantly, because that's the only way they're going to learn.
Yeah, that is very true.
And yeah, but we'll see how it goes if and when it comes in.
Absolutely, man. Well, I think we can move on to, I mean, arguably the biggest factor that I think like will be in terms of a negative for the cost of VAR. Now, obviously, I know that it costs differently in different leagues as well. I'm not sure of the exact what the cost of it down in England, but I can imagine that being a bit more just in terms of the size, like sort of of the actual leagues itself. And I mean, I know that in Holland it was 1.7 million euros, and the only reason that I know that will bring me on to my next point, like about that. But there was a ballpark figure you came across recently as well, mate. Yeah.
It was, yes. It was around about, I mean, this was an interview that Neil Doncaster did back in March of 2020, when he was discussing VAR in general and just saying, you know, he was a bit skeptical about it, a bit concerned about it coming into Scottish football, for reasons that we've pretty much covered. That it removes drama. It's not, you know, it's not on brand with what Scottish football's about. And in that article, he suggested that it's around about £1 million a year to implement and maintain. Now, I was looking this up, and what you actually need for VAR is you need a total of 6 cameras. Now, from a quick Google search and a few articles that I stumbled across, each Scottish football ground has 4. So you're talking 2 additional cameras would be needed. You're also then talking about you'd need a monitor at the side of the pitch, obviously, for the referees to use if they needed to, which probably wouldn't cost a great deal, to be honest. You also need somewhere for the additional referees to be. Now, obviously, in England, they have them in a central point, and that's, you know, I think it was St James's Park, I think, where they have it. Not St James's Park. The England, what's it called?
Dockley something.
That's it. That's that.
Probably like that. Aye.
Yeah. Aye, but they have it in like a centralized place, which makes sense. But we'd have to have that somewhere as well.
Yeah.
And you know, that's a lot of cost. And there are some football stadiums in Scotland that simply wouldn't be able to do that. Now, we talk about it's going to be for the top flight of Scottish football. What happens to upper end championship teams?
It won't happen.
You know,
I'm sorry. Like,
but the thing is, they get promoted. They have to come into the Premier League. One of the requirements is going to be, well, you need to be VAR ready. And, you know, I don't know what the prize money is for getting promoted to the Premier League, but I can't imagine it's not much.
Pounds. No, it's not much. No,
you know what I mean?
I mean, I think honestly, mate, I think that's around. It may be 1 point something, but that's generally what you actually get in terms of prize money if you win the league. No,
probably.
I'm pretty sure it is. Now,
probably.
This actually kind of brings me nicely on to my next point. Now, in terms of distribute, no, not like sort of the distribution, but in terms like, so let's say for argument's sake that it's going to cost £1 million. Now, is that just to install it, or does the cameras, does the monitor, so something that we've not like sort of read mentioned, like as well, screens in the actual stands as well, will that be all as one, or will that be like additional to the £1 million?
I don't know. And the
Right.
thing is, the article from that interview from Neil Doncaster was in March of last year, as I say, and the cost now compared to when England first implemented it will have come down because it's not new technology anymore.
No,
it's like everything. The longer it's around, the cheaper it gets. That's just how it works. Obviously, there'll be advances to the technology and they'll have improved it over the years, but it's still essentially the same technology, but it's cheaper. Right. So it makes sense as to why. That's probably why we're looking at it now as opposed to back when it was first introduced. And that's probably also why a lot of the clubs are kind of in favour of it, because they're maybe looking at it going, well, doesn't cost as much as it would have done a couple of years ago.
Yeah, right. So just to go back to your point that you made there. So if it was to get introduced to Scotland, and when the SFA go about in terms of how much clubs will have to pay, what my idea would be, and this brings me back to the point I made earlier on, because in Holland, they actually do it this way. Make Celtic and the Rangers pay more. Now, why I say that? No, right? Why I say that, right? You see that the like look, football, like Scottish football in general, right? It's represented by the old firm, right?
Yeah.
What the SFA and the SPFL do in terms of brand deals, TV rights, they do it to accommodate the old firm, because that's their was it the biggest asset, right? Because like folk everywhere watch that game, right?
Yeah.
Hence why Rangers and Celtic compared to the other clubs in Scotland are massive, right? So going back to the point that I was going to make, what they do in Holland, right? So it's 3 clubs. I know that 2 of them were both Ajax and the PSV. I'm pretty sure the other one is Feyenoord, right? I think, right? But what they did when VAR was introduced, right? Because those 3 clubs are massive in comparison to the other clubs, like sort of there, right? They took on the bulk of what it actually cost, right? So I don't know in terms of the percentage, in terms of how much they pay more, but they take like more sort of was it at the percentages of what it actually costs, so it doesn't like sort of financially trouble smaller clubs. Now, I would generally be all in like sort of was it at the favor, right? If in terms of the biggest was it at the budget you actually have. Now, of course, this brings Hearts into this as well, because it's well known we've got the third like sort of the biggest was it at the budget like in Scotland. Now, you're saying there that it would cost around $1 million. Now, if they're to do that equally, I mean, what that would be about 80 grand a year, like, or thereabouts, right? So
roughly ballpark. Yeah.
So with the foundation of Hearts, like at this moment, we're bringing in about 100 grand a month, right? So that's not going to be like not to sound like sort of arrogant or that, but that's not going to be a huge hit like on us, right? No. And as you go down the leagues, like Hibs, I mean, they've got their they've got their big fancy screens like sort of like installed like already, so they're probably already going, yeah, get them in. But you go to clubs like who you would think that would be relatively all right in terms of their the financial situations, right? Do you think of Aberdeen? They're actually not great, like sort of the right now, mate. Like, you know, and then you go to Motherwell, you go down to Ross, was it County? Like, again, with all due respect, where is a massive screen like sort of was it gonna go there? Like, you know what I mean?
Well,
Like, you know, that all
yeah.
comes like sort of into play. Hence why I think Celtic and the Rangers, who have got the biggest the budgets in Scottish football, should pay slightly more. Now, do you think that that's just me being me, or do you genuinely think that like, you know, I know that I don't have a tendency to actually like explain things properly, but do you get like sort of was it where I'm like sort of where they're coming from?
I do. They're the two biggest clubs in Scotland with the two biggest budgets. So ultimately that makes sense. But then if you're asking clubs to do that on like a proportion basis of like you've got the biggest budget, so you should pay the most, that then kind of creates a bit of an imbalance, I would say.
Right.
And I mean, Celtic and Rangers, yeah, they're the two biggest clubs in Scotland, and I openly admit to that, and they are the two main selling points. But they are all about self-interests, both of them. So I think asking them to agree to that, they're not going to do it. They wouldn't. You know, as much as you're absolutely right about Holland, and in Germany it's the same.
Yeah.
Like prize money wise, it's kind of shared out, and Bayern and Dortmund, they obviously get more TV revenue, and the same in Spain as well with Barcelona and Real Madrid. You know, they up until recently were the two biggest clubs in Spain and the two most attractive clubs in Spain, but
not anymore.
That's Spanish league is fully in the bin at the moment, but yeah, exactly. But that's what happens when you lose two of the best players in the world from your league.
True.
But no, going back to what I was saying, it's asking Celtic and Rangers to do that is perfectly sensible, but they wouldn't agree to that. And I think your point about like stadiums and where the facilities will go is a perfectly valid point. Like, I think, imagine, obviously Tynecastle now, we've got the new main stand, and it's big and fancy and great. You know, we've got space to put a screen somewhere. There is space.
Aye.
But imagine we didn't have that. Imagine we still had the old main stand, the old shed. Where'd you put a screen there? You know, and that's the thing. And I know I talked earlier about like newly promoted clubs into the Premier League. Where are they going to find upwards of £80,000 to do that?
Exactly. And like I said, I say this with the most like sort of respect, like sort of for the smaller clubs. Like, you know, £80,000 a year is a lot of money. Like,
it is.
You know,
it is, absolutely. But I think that the cost is something that, you know, would need to be sorted out. And obviously, I was reading, the BBC did an article about it, and they were saying that the SFA are prepared to underwrite the training costs for the referees, because obviously that's got to be taken into account as well.
Yeah.
But that would be up to the SFA to finance that. You're not going to ask clubs to finance that, because that's ridiculous.
No. Yeah.
But certainly cost, I think, is the biggest issue. But if they can find a way to work it, then that is an obstacle that's easy to overcome. And I think the way that I would say the cost is high, but it's necessary. Like,
yeah, I get you.
Do you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, like, no, I get you. Like, you know, for that, like
you could basically,
like, sorry, go on.
You could go. No, I was just going to say you could go for a budget version, but like say without screens for fans. But that, I think, would do more damage to the atmosphere within a stadium.
I completely
because I think
agree. Yeah,
there was games at the Euros where they didn't have screens, so you as a fan are sitting in a stadium. Say your team's just scored a goal, right? Like last night, Scotland game.
Yeah.
Okay. You're sitting in the stand. The ball's just gone in the net. You're going absolutely mental because your team's just scored a goal. Then the referee blows his whistle and stands with his finger in his ear for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
You as a spectator have no idea.
Yeah.
What is going on? You don't know if the referee's going to give it, or if he's changing his mind, or what that conversation is in his ear. You don't know. And I've said it for a long time that the referees in rugby having microphones is great because you can hear everything.
That
Scottish football,
Welsh, it's always a Welsh accent. It's like
it is. It's
brilliant.
but the thing, but the thing is that keeps the fans informed in some way because they can hear something and they can say,
Yeah.
oh, right, that's what his decision-making process is. And that's how he's come to that decision. In the English Premier League, the stadiums have got big screens. They replay the incidents while the referee's getting the information in his ear.
Yeah.
If we had a budget VAR version where you don't have screens,
No, like
that would kill it. That would kill it because you'd be sitting there going, I've just gone mental at a goal that I thought we scored.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm watching a guy with his finger in his ear talking to someone and I have no idea what's happening. So it is one of those. And that kind of leads on to the point that I was going to make about the last thing that Neil Doncaster said back in March 2020. One of the main reasons why he was against VAR at that point, he said it would ruin, and I'm quoting it here, the brand and the stadium experience for fans. He said, it's new technology. You've got to be careful that you don't damage something precious. Our brand is about stadium drama and excitement. If you end up in a situation where people feel they can't celebrate a goal properly in case it gets chalked off, you damage what Scottish football is about.
Do you know, I have never. Now, agreed is a strong word. Agreed is a strong word, but I understand, like I do, and that's where my kind of the worry comes into. But at that same point as well, it we could was to talk about this all night, but it's gonna come at some point. Now, I don't care what anybody says in terms of what we talked about in terms of was it how much it costs, what it may or may not do to the game. It will come, but I think, like you said as well, that's obviously going to be like part of the teething sort of was it the problem as such. And I think maybe in time fans will get used to it, but there is just a small part of me that, just to go back to sort of better your point, Scottish football will take a hit in the first instance, but for the long term, it may actually help us. But in that same instance, I think I can't really put my finger on it, but I think something will be taken away that I don't think will necessarily come back. I don't know specifically what that thing is, whether it be drama, like sort of double, whether it be the excitement, or what. But I think there is something that will be taken away from it.
Yeah,
I just don't know what it is yet.
I think just to sort of briefly kind of say again what I said about the Neil Doncaster situation. I know you said you sort of agree. I kind of tend to agree with him as well. In the sense that it will take away some drama and it will take away talking points. And we had I put out a Twitter poll, which I'll give the results of after, but
which I'm dying to hear actually.
Yeah, but it's the whole thing is, yes, it'll remove drama, it'll remove potential talking points for when you're in the pub with your mates after the game. It removes that, the referee had an absolute shocker, the referee totally missed that, or, it removes that barrier. But you look at social media after a VAR decision in an English game, and it's full of people saying, VAR this, VAR that, it got it right, or they got it wrong, shocking shambles. So we as football fans will always find something to talk about in a game situation. It might well ruin it when you're there in the stadium watching it, but it just turns the situation to complaining about the referee and saying he had an absolute nightmare to whoever was behind the referee screen doing the VAR got that one wrong or got that one right. So football will always have talking points and will always have controversy and will always have things for fans to moan about, essentially, and podcasts like ours to talk about.
Yeah, true as well. Like, I mean, you said there as well, was it going like to the pub, like sort of after a game to talk about the actual was a game itself? Because we got this was it the written down as well? Like, so again, do you feel as if the whole stadium experience as such actually going to any game, like, do you think that will kind of damage like the whole sort of the getting up like on a Saturday to then going, was it to watch Hearts, like, because I think maybe I'm possibly being too was it clinical about it, but do you feel as if that may start like a chain, was it the reaction in terms of the stadium experience won't be as good in turn? Some fans might not actually want to actually come to the game to watch them. I know that Hearts in specifically, we're in a sort of different sort of situation where in like a sense, if we don't go to the games, then that as a whole affects us as a club because we're like, when with the fan owned. So we've got a kind of different like sort of perspective on that. But do you feel as if like, the whole stadium experience will be affected and then in turn fans might actually not want to go?
I will give a reference to last night's game.
Go for it.
Now, the goal that Lyndon Dykes scored, the volley, the studs up, the high foot, whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
When I watched that, now I was at home watching it on the telly, so obviously different entirely from being in the stadium.
Of course.
But I've seen so many fans of clips online of them absolutely going ballistic when he scored to then instantly flat because they've realised it's VAR. Then the referee has the wee word in his ear. Now, there was no screen at Hampden telling the fans what was happening. No screen at all. But the Scotland fans were sitting there going, oh, God, please let this be a goal. This is an important time. If we get a goal, it's 2-2 and it gets us back in the game. As soon as the referee walks over to that monitor and checks it and comes back on and does his wee point that the goal's given, the stadium erupted. And that, obviously, it's a full house at Hampden, which doesn't happen that often. But that, for me, is a football experience. That's an atmosphere. Now, okay, in that brief, whatever it was, minute, 2 minutes, whatever, that the referee went across and did his review and all that, there's fans sitting there going, oh, for fuck's sake, please let this be a goal. Please let this be a goal. But, like, they spoke to Lyndon Dykes after the game, and he said, I knew it was a goal. I knew I didn't touch the guy. I know I didn't foul him. I got the ball. I knew it was a goal, but the referee was telling me it was no goal before he went and looked at the monitor.
Right.
So I get what you're saying. And just to go back to it, like you're saying about fans not potentially turning up, I don't think it's that deep, to be honest. I don't think it's that deep. I think if we as fans can see VAR working and the benefits of it, I think that's enough for people to go, I don't like it, but it works.
Fair enough.
Do you know what I mean?
Fair enough. No, man. Fair enough.
And I think that for me is enough to kind of outweigh it. Like, there might, like I said, there will be teething problems when it first comes in. Fans will have to be patient and understand this is new. This is something we've not used before. There might be some decisions that even VAR gets wrong. Because again, like I said at the start, it's not going to be 100% accurate all of the time. But we as a fan base across Scottish football, I'm talking Hearts fans, Hibs fans, Celtic, Rangers, everyone, we have to be patient with it and we have to understand sometimes they might still get things wrong because we're not chasing perfection because you can't get that.
No.
But in terms of keeping fans away, if you don't go to a game of football because you're not a fan of VAR, well, I don't know what to say about that. To be honest.
Fair enough, man. Fair enough. Well, you mentioned earlier on that on the Since I Was Young, was it at the podcast Twitter page? We did put out the poll asking all you guys if you are in favour or not in the favour of the VAR being introduced to Scotland. Unfortunately, Alan did not put was it the third option saying they can, because that would have been my option. So Alan, you said the poll ended not too long ago. Would you be an absolute babe and tell us what the results of said the poll was?
Absolutely. So as you said, it was a simple yes or no. VAR in Scottish football. So in the yes or I camp, 42%. In the no, 58. 58% no, 42% yes.
I didn't expect that.
Did you not?
No, I genuinely thought it would be more to yes. Oh, it's fucking.
To be fair,
it's fucking. The Brexit all over again.
To be fair, to be fair though, it was a lot closer than I was expecting it to be.
I mean, how many votes was there? Like, sort of just out of curiosity.
Just over 200.
So that's fair enough. Like,
yeah. It
really
shows that. No, but it shows that people are obviously still against it because they're looking at it going, you know, Scottish football's fine, doesn't need VAR. And I get that. I get that from a point of view. Just to share some of the responses that I actually got, because I asked also for people to drop their thoughts in.
By the way,
there was one from, let me get this right. So it was at Steely2K14, and he said, I would like to see it help these refs make the right decision, but then it's just the refs here are shocking. And that's accurate. Right. That's quite accurate. Right. But that goes back to what I was saying. It's about trusting the referees that we have, and do we as a fan base trust them already? Probably not.
No.
So you're giving them technology and telling them to use it, and you're still thinking, well, you've got to use it right. There was another one that I actually liked a lot. It said, so it was at Dico22, and he said, referees need help. Why not give them the tools? Only downside is the officials here using it. So again, there's not a lot of faith in the Scottish referees at this point.
Really? I had no idea.
Then another one, just to back it up again, was Josh_5_1, and he said, yes, if referees were more competent and could be trusted to use it properly, but as part of a set of sweeping changes to ensure that, better training, more accountability if obvious errors are made, etc.
Oh God, it's a fascinating debate. Honestly, mate, it's a fascinating debate.
And the last one that I will reference is at Always Gordy, and he says, one of my favourite things about the football is the dodgy decisions for or against you. You won't have anything to talk about in the pub afterwards if everything is perfect. Our fans are not tourists. Leave football alone.
Oh, powerful stuff. Powerful stuff.
It just shows you that that's what I'm saying, and it kind of sums up everything that we've spoken about, because there's fans there saying the referees need the help, let's give it to them, but then the flip side of that is they need to use it properly.
So even after we talked about, I think it's just been about for 1 hour, even after all that time, we're still nowhere near if we actually, well, me, like, so I'm still nowhere near if I actually won or not. Like, honestly, it's a mind fuck.
I want it purely because I want it in the right system. And I think if we go for a light version, no, it's a no from me. If we get everything in, screens, cameras, monitors, train the referees, I'm happy to see it. Well, because I'm a patient man. I'll sit and watch the referees make howlers as long as it's not against us. If it's not in our favour, I'll not be happy.
Did you just say that you're a patient man, mate? Have you seen yourself a football game?
I'm a patient man in context.
You're the most anxiety-filled person at a football game when there's the pressure there.
Okay, I'm a patient man as long as the right decision is made. About that.
Fair enough. I'll take that, man. Well, I think on that note, for all of you that is watching right now, even though we've had some the comments there, and the thank you to everyone who did was a comment on it. We would love to hear what you guys think as well. Just from the points that we've made in terms of the positives, the negatives, the impact that it may have on the stadiums, the like sort of as such, the clubs as well in terms of a financial aspect as well. We would love to hear what you guys think. So I'm sure that we'll put a thread out again as well when we do, was it Ed, to put this, was it Ed, the video up as well, just to hear like sort of Ed, what you guys think. So yeah, I guess it's now down to what we hear from the rest of the clubs from the top flight, and then just see where it goes from there. Just to sort of, was it bring that up again, Alan? What day is it that the clubs cast their vote?
I don't think it's been put that far ahead yet.
Right,
I
right.
think
Okay,
it's
sorry, my apologies.
No. The meeting itself was obviously very much in favour of VAR, and there was a broad support of it.
Right.
It said that it sounds as if there will be, because that's the way the process usually works.
Yeah, yeah.
They'll have a meeting, they'll discuss it, and then there'll be a vote if the clubs want to use it or not. And then obviously there'll be a decision after that. But the fact that they're saying it would probably be 2022 or maybe 2023 by the time it comes in,
most likely.
I don't think a vote would be too far away.
Right.
But I don't think there's a definitive time as and when that'll happen, but maybe not too far away.
But just don't give that vote to fucking Dundee, because you'll say yes, but then you'll probably say no.
As long they might get some Celtic players on loan to help them though, to sweeten the deal.
Of course, man, of course. But yeah, that is a different. Was it Ed, the podcast in itself? So
check your spam folders. Check your spam folders, lads.
Well, on that note, like as well, guys, we'll probably end it there. So yes, as always, guys, as we said beforehand, we would love to hear what you guys think. So I'm sure that we'll put everything on Twitter, and obviously, like as well, if you want to put your comments down on the YouTube link as well, that would be appreciated, like as well, guys. But as always, guys, we do really appreciate you both watching the podcast as well. So to all, thank you very much. And if you are not subscribed to the podcast, please think about subscribing, smash that like button. It really means the world, as always, guys. And if you want to get in contact with us through our socials as well, you can through Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. All the links will be in the description. And if you want to get in contact with us officially as well, you can since I was young 1874@gmail.com. And if you want to get in contact with either myself or Alan, you can. Both are links to our Twitter pages as well, and my YouTube channel, What Ewan's Doing, all will be in the description. So yes, Alan, as always, mate, thank you very much for a very lively discussion. And just to wrap it all off, my arse is still on that fence. Firmly.
You'll be getting splinters, mate. Splinters.
It'll be worth it. but anyhow, as always, guys, thank you very much for watching, and we will see you in the next one. You take care. Bye for now.